Daniel, why are you taking off my necklace?
Because it doesn't belong on you anymore.
What? Daniel, that's my necklace. You gave it to me on our 10th
And
anniversary.
that marriage is over.
Daniel!
It doesn't mean anything to me anymore.
You brought me onto this yacht on our 15th anniversary just to humiliate me?
I brought you here to finally end this.
The champagne glass hit the polished deck and exploded at Claire Bennett's feet. Daniel, don't do this. Her husband didn't even flinch. Around them, conversations died one by one. 15 guests stood beneath the warm lights of the luxury yacht, some holding champagne, others staring openly. Beyond the railing, Charleston Harbor glittered against the night. Daniel Bennett straightened his jacket and looked at his wife as though the last 15 years had been reduced to an inconvenient business arrangement. "I'm not doing anything to you, Claire," he said. "I'm finally being honest." Claire's fingers trembled. Beside Daniel stood Natalie Brooks, 36, elegant, confident, and far too comfortable standing beside another woman's husband on his anniversary. Claire looked from Natalie to Daniel. "Tell her to move." Daniel sighed. "Claire, I said tell her to move away from you." Natalie lowered her eyes, but she didn't move. Daniel reached for her hand and took it. A woman near the dinner table gasped. Claire stared at their joined hands. Something inside her seemed to crack. Daniel had wanted everyone to see this. Their friends, his business partners, people who had toasted their marriage less than an hour earlier. Then the yacht suddenly lurched. The engines dropped into a low rumble. Glasses rattled. Daniel looked toward the stern. What happened? No one answered. The yacht slowed. Then came footsteps. Captain Marcus Hale appeared from the upper deck carrying a sealed document. His expression was serious. Daniel stepped toward him. "Captain, why are we stopping?" Marcus looked directly at him. "Mr. Bennett, this boat isn't going any farther." Daniel laughed. "What? I said we're stopping." Daniel's smile vanished. "I paid for this yacht." Marcus glanced at the document in his hand. "That's exactly the problem." Daniel stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Marcus stepped closer. "According to the information I received this afternoon, Mr. Bennett, you had no authority to charter this vessel using the account you used." Daniel went completely still, and Claire saw something she hadn't seen all evening. Fear. Not embarrassment. Not anger. Fear. 6 weeks earlier, Daniel Bennett had walked into his kitchen at 11:47 at night and found his wife sitting alone at the island. "You're still awake?" Claire looked up. "Apparently." Daniel loosened his tie. "Long day." "So you said." He opened the refrigerator. Claire watched him. For 15 years, she had known almost every version of this man. The broke 29-year-old who once drove across town at midnight because she wanted ice cream. The nervous entrepreneur who rehearsed presentations in their bathroom mirror. The father who cried when Sophie first called him daddy. And now this version. The man who came home smelling faintly of perfume that didn't belong to his wife. "How was Atlanta?" Claire asked. Daniel hesitated for half a second. "Exhausting." "Good conference." "Same nonsense." "Meetings." "Investors." "Too much coffee." Claire nodded. Daniel grabbed a bottle of water. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You look strange." Claire smiled. "Maybe I missed my husband." That stopped him. For one brief second, guilt crossed his face. Then he walked over and kissed her forehead. "I missed you too." Claire closed her eyes. She almost wished she could believe him. 3 hours earlier, a notification had appeared on the tablet they occasionally shared. A credit card charge. The Palmetto Grand Hotel. Charleston. Daniel had supposedly been in Atlanta. Claire waited until he went upstairs. Then she opened their financial records. At first, she searched for the hotel. She found something worse. $42,000 transferred from Bennett Coastal Development. Then $61,500. Then $87,000. Then another $89,000. All sent to a company Claire had never heard of. BR Holdings LLC. Nearly $280,000. Claire stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Bennett Coastal Development wasn't simply Daniel's company. It had started at their kitchen table. When banks refused to take Daniel seriously, Claire had invested money left to her by her grandmother. When Daniel couldn't afford an assistant, Claire became one. She prepared proposals while pregnant. She answered client emails from the hospital after Sophie was born. Then the company grew. And somewhere between their first $1 million contract and their beautiful house outside Charleston, Daniel stopped saying we. At a dinner 6 months earlier, someone had asked how Bennett Coastal became successful. Daniel smiled. A lot of sleepless nights and good instincts. Claire had waited. Nothing. One of their friends laughed. And Claire. Daniel put an arm around her. Claire makes sure I remember where I left my keys. Everyone laughed. Claire did too. But in the car afterward, she stared through the window. You embarrassed me tonight. Daniel frowned. What? You know what I did for that company. It was a joke. At my expense. Oh, come on, Claire. You could have told them the truth. Everybody knows you're my wife. That wasn't what I meant. Daniel shook his head. This is exactly why I hate these conversations. Everything becomes some referendum on whether I appreciate you enough. Claire turned toward him. Do you? Daniel looked at her. What kind of question is that? One you didn't answer. That night, Daniel slept facing the opposite direction. Now, 6 months later, Claire sat alone downstairs looking at $280,000 disappearing into an unknown company. The next morning, she called their accountant. Peter, I need to ask you something. Sure. What is BR Holdings? Silence. Claire. Her stomach tightened. What is it? I think you should discuss that with Daniel. I'm discussing it with you. Claire, I don't want to get between. Peter. Her voice hardened. I am a co-founder of Bennett Coastal Development. My name is on the operating agreement. I'm asking where $280,000 went. Another silence. Finally, Peter exhaled. I noticed the transfers too. And Daniel told me they were for a strategic acquisition. What acquisition? He never provided the documentation. Claire closed her eyes. Who owns BR Holdings? I don't know. Find out. Claire, please. 2 days later, Peter called back. Are you alone? Claire sat straighter. Yes. BR Holdings was registered 8 months ago. By whom? Peter hesitated. Natalie Brooks. Claire stopped breathing. Natalie. The marketing consultant Daniel had hired 11 months earlier. The woman who laughed a little too hard at his jokes. The woman whose name had begun appearing in Daniel's conversations almost daily. Natalie thinks this. Natalie suggested that. Natalie has a contact. Natalie and I have dinner with investors. Claire gripped the phone. Are you certain? Yes. After the call, she remained perfectly still. Then Daniel walked into the room. Guess what? Claire turned. He was smiling. Our anniversary. Her heart began pounding. What about it? I've planned something. You remembered? Daniel laughed. Of course I remembered. He leaned against the counter. 15 years deserves something special. Claire studied his face. What are you planning? A yacht. She blinked. A yacht. Private dinner. Charleston Harbor. Champagne. Music. The works. Claire almost laughed at the absurdity. This man had barely touched her in months. Now he wanted a yacht. Just us. Daniel hesitated. No. I thought we'd invite a few people. Close friends. Some business people. Business people? Come on, Claire. It'll be fun. She stared at him, then smiled. All right. Daniel kissed her cheek. You're going to love it. 3 days before the anniversary, Claire was reading in their bedroom when Daniel's tablet lit up. A message appeared. Natalie, does she still have no idea you're doing it on the boat? Claire's blood went cold. She stared at those words. Doing what? Another message appeared. Natalie, I bought the dress. You better make this worth it. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Claire locked the screen. Daniel entered. Have you seen my tablet? She pointed toward the dresser. Right there. He picked it up. For a second, Claire wondered whether she should confront him. Instead, she asked quietly, what time do we leave Saturday? 6. I'll be ready. Daniel smiled. Trust me. It'll be a night you'll never forget. Claire waited until he left. Then she reached for her phone. Her hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. Hello. A man answered. Yes. Is this Captain Marcus Hale? It is. My name is Claire Bennett. There was a pause. Mrs. Bennett. Yes. I believe my husband chartered your yacht for Saturday. He did. Claire looked toward the doorway. I need to ask you something about how he paid for it. What exactly do you need to know? Claire swallowed. Everything. Before we continue, if you've ever watched someone mistake another person's silence for weakness, comment below. Would you confront them immediately, or wait until you knew the whole truth? And if you're enjoying the story, like the video and subscribe, because what Claire discovered next was the reason Daniel's perfect anniversary ambush was about to collapse around him. Saturday arrived. At 5:52 p.m., Claire stood in front of the bedroom mirror wearing a dark blue dress Daniel had once told her made her look beautiful. He appeared behind her. For several seconds, their eyes met through the mirror. "You look incredible," he said. Claire touched her earrings. "Thank you." Daniel stepped closer. Nervous. She turned. "Should I be?" His smile faltered, then returned. "No." Claire picked up her purse. "Then let's go celebrate 15 years. Daniel smiled. But Claire already knew they weren't going to celebrate anything. She simply didn't know yet how cruel he intended to be. And Daniel had no idea that while he'd spent weeks preparing to humiliate his wife, Claire had spent 3 days preparing to survive him. The moment Claire stepped onto the yacht, she knew Daniel had lied about one more thing. This wasn't a small anniversary dinner. Nearly 20 people were already aboard. Friends, business associates, 2 investors from Bennett Coastal Development, Daniel's college friend Michael, Claire's neighbor, Rebecca, even Peter, their accountant, stood near the railing with a drink in his hand. Claire stopped. Daniel touched the small of her back. Surprise. She turned slowly toward him. "You invited all these people? I told you I wanted tonight to be special. You said a few close friends. These are close friends." Claire looked around again. Then she saw Natalie. She was standing near the bar in a fitted red dress, talking to one of Daniel's business partners. Claire felt her stomach tighten. Natalie noticed them. For 1 second, the 2 women stared at each other. Natalie looked away first. Claire leaned toward Daniel. "You invited her?" Daniel didn't even pretend not to know who she meant. "Natalie works with us. This is our anniversary. And why does your marketing consultant need to be here?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Please don't start." Claire stared at him. "Start what? Whatever this is." "This." "Claire, people are watching." She almost laughed. That was the point, wasn't it? People were watching. Daniel wanted them watching. Claire lowered her voice. "Then we'd better give them something worth watching." Daniel studied her face. "What does that mean?" "Nothing." Before he could ask again, Captain Marcus approached. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett." Daniel smiled broadly. "Captain, beautiful boat." "Thank you, sir." Marcus shook Daniel's hand. Then he turned to Claire. "Mrs. Bennett." His expression remained professional, but his eyes held hers for a second longer than necessary. "Happy anniversary." "Thank you, Captain. Everything is prepared as requested." Claire heard the emphasis. Daniel didn't. "Excellent," he said. "Let's make this a night nobody forgets." Marcus looked at him. "I suspect it will be." Then he walked away. Claire exhaled slowly. Daniel glanced after him. "Strange guy. I thought he seemed nice." "Whatever." Within minutes, the yacht pulled away from the marina. Music played. Champagne flowed. The Charleston skyline slowly moved behind them. Daniel became the version of himself everyone loved. Charming. Funny. Generous. He wrapped his arm around Claire whenever someone took a photograph. 15 years, he announced. Guests applauded. Claire smiled for the cameras. Rebecca hugged her. "You two are still my favorite couple." Claire's smile tightened. "Are we?" Rebecca laughed. "Of course. Look at this. My husband barely remembers Valentine's Day." Claire glanced across the deck. Daniel was whispering something to Natalie. Natalie laughed, then touched his arm. Rebecca followed Claire's eyes. Her smile faded. "Is everything okay?" Claire looked back at her. "Why wouldn't it be?" "I don't know. You just seem—" "What?" "Far away." Claire took a sip of champagne. "Maybe I'm finally seeing things from a distance." Rebecca frowned. Before she could ask what Claire meant, Daniel called from across the deck. "Claire." She turned. "Come take a picture." Daniel stood with Natalie and several business associates. Claire walked over. Natalie smiled. "You look beautiful, Claire." "So do you." "Thank you." Claire looked at her dress. "Special occasion?" Natalie's smile stiffened. Daniel interrupted. "Everybody closer." They posed. The photographer counted. 3, 2, 1. Flash. In that frozen photograph, Daniel stood between his wife and his mistress. And somehow, he was the only person smiling naturally. An hour later, dinner was served. Claire sat beside Daniel. Natalie sat across from them. That wasn't an accident. Claire knew it. Daniel knew it. And judging by the way Natalie avoided Claire's eyes, she knew it too. Michael raised his glass. To 15 years. Everyone lifted theirs. To Claire and Daniel. Claire touched her glass to Daniel's. He smiled. To us. Claire stared directly into his eyes. To everything we've built. Daniel's smile weakened. Natalie looked down. Claire noticed. Interesting. Dinner continued. Daniel told stories about their early marriage, carefully rewriting history as he went. Remember our first apartment? He asked. Claire nodded. How could I forget? We had nothing. You had nothing. Several guests laughed. Daniel looked confused. Claire continued. I had a job. More laughter. Daniel forced a smile. That's true. And savings. Yes. And my grandmother's inheritance. The laughter disappeared. Peter looked at his plate. Daniel leaned toward her. What are you doing? Claire smiled. Remembering. He lowered his voice. Don't embarrass me. The irony nearly took her breath away. You wouldn't want that. Daniel stared at her. Natalie shifted in her chair. Then Daniel suddenly stood. All right. He tapped his champagne glass with a spoon. Can I have everyone's attention? Claire's heartbeat changed. This was it. Conversation stopped. Daniel smiled around the table. First, thank you all for coming. 15 years is a long time. Someone shouted. Here's to 15 more. A few people laughed. Daniel didn't. Claire watched his face. He had rehearsed this. She could tell. When Claire and I got married, we were different people. We were young. We were ambitious. We had absolutely no idea where life would take us. Claire's fingers tightened around her napkin. Daniel continued. We built a home. We raised an amazing daughter. We built a business. Claire noticed the word. We. Interesting time to remember it. And I'm grateful for all of that. His voice softened. But life changes. Rebecca stopped smiling. Michael looked toward Claire. Daniel took a breath. Sometimes loving someone means recognizing when you've become different people. Claire stared at him. There it was. Daniel reached inside his jacket. Rebecca whispered. No. Daniel removed a white envelope. He placed it in front of Claire. Nobody moved. Claire looked down. Her name was printed across the front. Claire Bennett. She didn't touch it. What is this? Daniel remained standing. I think you know. Say it. Claire. Say it. His eyes flicked toward the guests. That was when she understood. Even now, he wanted her to make this easier for him. Claire repeated. Tell everyone what you put in front of me. Daniel swallowed. Divorce papers. Rebecca covered her mouth. Someone whispered. You've got to be kidding me. Claire looked around the table. Then back at Daniel. You invited our friends to watch you give me divorce papers? I didn't want there to be lies anymore. Lies. Please don't make this ugly. Claire laughed once. It wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. You brought me onto a boat for our 15th anniversary, surrounded me with people we know, handed me divorce papers, and now you're asking me not to make it ugly? Daniel's face hardened. I knew you'd react emotionally. Claire stared at him. Emotionally? Yes. You're divorcing me in public. I wanted accountability. For whom? For both of us. Claire pushed her chair back and stood. You wanted witnesses. Daniel said nothing. You wanted people here because you wanted to control what they heard. That's ridiculous. Is it? Daniel lowered his voice. We've been unhappy for years. Have we? Yes. You never mentioned that. I shouldn't have to. Claire shook her head. 15 years, Daniel. I know. No. You don't. Her voice cracked for the first time. I gave you 15 years. I gave you 15 years too. Claire's eyes filled. I gave you money when you couldn't get a bank to trust you. I worked beside you when we couldn't afford employees. I raised Sophie while answering your clients at midnight. I stood beside you when people told me your business would fail. Daniel looked embarrassed. Claire, this isn't the place. She stared at him. You chose the place. Silence. Then Claire looked across the table. At Natalie. Natalie's face had gone pale. Claire turned back to Daniel. Is she the reason? Daniel's jaw tightened. Don't. Claire pointed toward Natalie. Is she the reason? Natalie whispered. Daniel. Claire looked at her. How long? Natalie shook her head. This isn't how this was supposed to happen. Claire almost smiled. How was it supposed to happen? Daniel stepped between them. Leave her out of this. That answered everything. Claire stared at her husband. You're protecting her? I'm trying to stop you from creating a scene. A scene. Claire's voice rose. You invited her to our anniversary. Daniel's restraint snapped. Because I'm tired of pretending. Nobody moved. Daniel breathed heavily. Then he said the words he'd probably been waiting months to say. I love Natalie. Claire's face changed. Even though she had suspected it, hearing him say it was different. She looked at Natalie. Natalie slowly stood. Claire asked again. How long? Daniel said. It doesn't matter. Claire didn't look at him. Natalie. Natalie's eyes filled with uncertainty. How long? Claire, I'm sorry. How long? Natalie swallowed. Almost a year. Claire closed her eyes. Almost a year. Christmas. Sophie's birthday. Their family vacation. Claire's surgery scare. Her mother's memorial dinner. All of it. Daniel had been coming home to her while loving someone else. Claire opened her eyes. Did you sleep in my house? Natalie looked confused. What? When I visited my sister in April. Did you sleep in my house? Claire, Daniel warned. She turned sharply. I'm not asking you. Natalie looked at Daniel. That hesitation was enough. Claire whispered. My bed. Natalie said nothing. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Daniel reached toward her. Claire. She stepped away. Don't touch me. I'm sorry you found out this way. She stared at him. Found out. Her voice dropped. You arranged for me to find out this way. Daniel's face hardened again. You want the truth? Fine. You haven't really been part of my life for years. Claire blinked. And you haven't been part of the company either. Not really. I built it into what it is. Peter looked up. Claire slowly turned toward him. You built it? Yes. Alone. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Daniel exhaled. You signed the agreements. You'll receive a settlement. You'll be comfortable. Claire stared at him. You've already decided what I receive. My attorneys have prepared something fair. Your attorneys? Don't turn this into a war. Claire looked at the envelope. Then at Natalie. Then at the faces surrounding her. She understood Daniel's plan completely. Humiliate her. Overwhelm her. Make her emotional. Then convince everyone that whatever happened afterward was simply a bitter wife seeking revenge. Daniel softened his voice. Claire, let's handle this with dignity. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she wiped one tear from her cheek. Are you finished? Daniel blinked. What? Your speech. Your performance. Your little anniversary surprise. Claire, are you finished? Daniel looked around. Then nodded. Yes. Claire picked up the envelope. She didn't open it. She simply placed it back in front of him. Good. Daniel frowned. Good. Claire looked directly into his eyes. Yes, Daniel. Then the floor beneath them vibrated differently. The engine suddenly dropped. The yacht began slowing. A glass slid several inches across the table. Michael grabbed it. What happened? Daniel looked toward the stern. The music stopped. Guests turned toward the upper deck. Daniel frowned. We shouldn't be stopping. Claire said nothing. Footsteps approached. Captain Marcus appeared. This time, he wasn't smiling. He carried a sealed document in his hand. Daniel stepped toward him. Captain, what's going on? Marcus stopped several feet away. Mr. Bennett, we've received confirmation. Confirmation of what? Marcus looked briefly at Claire. Then back at Daniel. This vessel is returning to the marina. Daniel stared at him. No, it isn't. I'm afraid it is. I chartered this yacht until midnight. Marcus's expression didn't change. You paid for the charter using Bennett Coastal Development Funds. Daniel shrugged. So, Marcus held up the document. So we've been formally notified that the transaction is disputed. Daniel's face tightened. By who? Claire finally spoke. By me. Everyone turned. Daniel slowly looked at his wife. What did you say? Claire stepped away from the table. I disputed it. You? Yes. Daniel laughed, but there was panic beneath it. You can't dispute company spending. Claire walked toward him. Why not? Because you don't run Bennett Coastal. Claire stopped. No, Daniel. Her voice was remarkably calm now. But neither do you. The color drained from his face. Claire continued. You've spent the last year telling everyone that I'm just your wife. She glanced at Natalie. You apparently told her the same thing. Natalie's expression changed. Daniel shook his head. You have no idea what you're talking about. Claire reached into her purse. Actually, that's the first mistake you made. She removed a folded document. You forgot who put the first $140,000 into Bennett Coastal Development. Daniel stared at the paper. Claire stepped closer. You forgot whose signature is on the original operating agreement. Peter slowly stood. Daniel looked toward him. Peter. The accountant didn't answer. Claire continued. And most importantly, she unfolded the document. You forgot that certain transfers require authorization from both founding members. Daniel's face went white. Claire looked directly at him. Where is the $280,000, Daniel? Nobody breathed. Natalie turned sharply toward him. What $280,000? Claire looked at her, and for the first time that evening, she realized something unexpected. Natalie wasn't pretending. She genuinely didn't know. Daniel looked from his wife to his mistress, and suddenly, the man who had invited everyone aboard to watch Claire fall apart was trapped between two women demanding the same thing. The truth. Daniel's eyes moved from Claire to Natalie. What are you doing? Natalie stepped away from him. I asked you a question. What $280,000? Daniel lowered his voice. Not now. Claire almost laughed. That's interesting. Daniel turned toward her. What? An hour ago, you thought this boat was the perfect place for honesty. Claire, stay out of this. Out of what? My marriage or my company? A few guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Daniel looked around and seemed to realize how quickly he was losing control. Everyone, please. There is obviously some confusion. Peter spoke for the first time. There isn't. Daniel turned. What did you say? Peter put his glass down. I said there isn't any confusion. Peter, you work for me. I work for Bennett Coastal Development. I am Bennett Coastal Development. Claire shook her head. There it is again. Daniel ignored her. Peter, whatever she told you. She didn't have to tell me anything. I saw the transfers. Natalie stared at Daniel. Transfers to where? Peter looked toward Claire, silently asking permission. Claire nodded. BR Holdings. Natalie's face changed. She looked at Daniel. No. Claire watched her carefully. Natalie whispered. You said that money came from the investor account. Daniel stepped toward her. Can we discuss this privately? Natalie moved back. Did you transfer company money into BR Holdings? Natalie. Answer me. Yes. The word landed heavily. Natalie's mouth opened. How much? Daniel said nothing. Claire answered. $279,500. Natalie looked sick. You told me it was 100. Daniel's head snapped toward her. Natalie, shut up. Silence. Claire's eyes narrowed. 100,000. Natalie realized what she'd revealed. Daniel grabbed her arm. Stop talking. She pulled free. Don't touch me. Claire watched Daniel's face. For the first time that night, the polished businessman disappeared completely. His breathing became shallow. His eyes moved rapidly around the deck. He wasn't controlling the story anymore. And he knew it. Claire stepped toward Natalie. What did he tell you the money was for? Daniel interrupted. She doesn't have to answer you. Natalie looked at him. Then at Claire. He said he was buying out your remaining interest. Claire went still. My remaining interest? He told me you agreed. Claire stared at Daniel. Natalie continued. He said after the divorce you would receive the house and a settlement, and he would own the company outright. Claire's voice dropped. Daniel. She's confused. Natalie laughed bitterly. No, I'm not. You don't understand the corporate structure. You told me Claire owned less than 10%. Claire looked at Natalie. I own 49. Natalie stared at her. What? 49%. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Enough. Claire didn't look away from Natalie. And several major financial decisions require both founding members to approve them. Natalie slowly turned toward Daniel. You told me she signed everything. Daniel's jaw tightened. I said I had it handled. No. You said she signed. Natalie. You lied to me. Claire felt something strange. Not sympathy exactly. Natalie had knowingly slept with a married man. She had come aboard knowing Daniel intended to humiliate his wife. But Claire could also see something else now. Daniel hadn't simply betrayed one woman. He had constructed different versions of reality for both of them. Claire asked, Did you know he was giving me divorce papers tonight? Natalie hesitated. Yes. Did you know he was doing it in front of everyone? Yes. Claire swallowed. That hurt. Natalie looked down. I thought you'd known the marriage was over. Claire's expression hardened. You thought I knew? That's what Daniel told me. Claire laughed softly. Of course he did. Daniel stepped forward. Can everyone stop talking about me like I'm not standing here? Claire turned toward him. That's how you've treated me for years. He stared at her. What? You made decisions about my marriage without me. Decisions about my company without me. Decisions about my money without me. And tonight, you even decided how I was supposed to receive my divorce. Because talking to you is impossible. When did you try? I tried for years. Name one time. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Claire stepped closer. One conversation, Daniel. Name one conversation where you sat across from me and said, Claire, our marriage is failing. Daniel's face tightened. You knew? No. I knew you were distant. I knew you stopped touching me. I knew you treated me like furniture at business dinners. I knew you came home later and later. Her voice cracked. But I didn't know my husband had spent almost a year sleeping with another woman while planning how to remove me from the company I helped build. Daniel lowered his voice. I didn't remove you. You transferred money. That was a legitimate business restructuring. Peter shook his head. Not without authorization. Daniel rounded on him. You'd better be careful. Peter stared back. Is that a threat? Daniel said nothing. Captain Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Bennett, I need everyone to remain calm. Daniel turned on him. And you stay out of my marriage. Marcus didn't move. I'm not involved in your marriage. I'm responsible for this vessel. Then turn the boat around. We are returning to the marina. I said turn it around. No. Daniel took another step. Marcus's voice became firmer. Do not make me repeat myself. Claire had never seen Daniel spoken to like that. Apparently neither had he. Daniel looked around the deck. At the friends who wouldn't meet his eyes. At the investors whispering to each other. At Peter. At Natalie. Finally at Claire. You planned this. Claire stared at him. No. Don't lie to me. I didn't plan your affair. You called the captain. Yes. You called Peter. Yes. You went through my accounts. Our accounts. You wanted this to happen. Claire shook her head. I wanted to know what you were doing. You set me up. No, Daniel. Her voice became quiet. You set a trap for me. I just refused to walk into it blind. He laughed bitterly. You think you're clever? No. You think waving around some operating agreement means you've won? This isn't a game. It became one the second you started investigating your own husband. Claire stared at him. The second I started investigating? She stepped closer. Not the second you started sleeping with Natalie? Daniel looked away. Not the second you moved company money? Silence. Not the second you invited our friends onto a yacht to watch you hand me divorce papers? Daniel said nothing. Claire nodded. Right. Natalie suddenly spoke. There's more. Daniel froze. Claire turned. What? Natalie looked frightened now. Daniel shook his head. Don't. Natalie ignored him. The condo. Claire's stomach tightened. What condo? Daniel walked toward Natalie. Enough. She backed away. You said everything was legal. It is. You lied about Claire's ownership. You lied about the money. What else did you lie about? Claire repeated. What condo? Natalie looked at her. Daniel put a deposit on a condo in Miami. Claire's face fell. When? 3 months ago. How much? I don't know. Daniel said. This is ridiculous. Natalie looked at him. You said we'd move there after the divorce. Rebecca whispered from behind Claire. Oh my God. Claire closed her eyes. She remembered 3 months earlier. Daniel had told her they needed to cut household spending because the company was experiencing temporary cash flow pressure. Claire had canceled a trip she'd planned with Sophie. She had stopped talking about replacing her 10-year-old car. And Daniel had been putting money down on a condo for Natalie. Claire opened her eyes. How much was the deposit? Daniel didn't answer. Daniel, it's none of your business. Claire almost couldn't believe what she'd heard. None of my business. We're getting divorced. We weren't divorced 3 months ago. We were effectively separated. Claire stared at him. We slept in the same bed 3 months ago. Daniel looked away. That hurt more than she expected. Her eyes filled again. She turned toward the railing because she refused to let him watch another tear fall. Rebecca approached quietly. Claire. I'm okay. No, you're not. Claire wiped her cheek. I will be. Behind her, Natalie was still confronting Daniel. You told me the deposit came from your personal account. It did. Peter interrupted. Which personal account? Daniel glared at him. Stay out of this. Peter pulled out his phone. Claire turned. Peter's expression had changed. What is it? He looked at her. I need to check something. Daniel moved toward him. You don't need to check anything. Peter stepped back. Claire watched him scroll. Then stop. His face went pale. Daniel. What? Peter looked up. There was a $75,000 distribution to your personal account 3 days before that Miami payment. Daniel said nothing. Peter continued. You categorized it as an executive bonus. So, you never disclosed a bonus. I don't have to explain my compensation to you. Peter looked at Claire. Actually, under the current agreement, a distribution that large should have been reported. Claire felt the deck shift beneath her, though the yacht was moving smoothly now. How much money are we talking about altogether? Peter hesitated. I don't know yet. Estimate. Claire, please. Peter looked at Daniel, then back at her. With the BR transfers, the distribution, and several expenses I now think we need to review. He exhaled. Possibly over 400,000. A shocked murmur moved through the guests. Daniel exploded. This is insane. Everyone jumped. He pointed at Peter. You're fired. Peter stared at him. You can't fire me to make the records disappear. I can fire you because you're incompetent. Daniel, Claire said. He turned. Shut up. Silence. Claire's face went still. Daniel seemed to realize immediately what he'd done, but he was too angry to stop. You've spent 15 years hanging on to me, Claire. 15 years reminding everyone about the money you put in at the beginning as though that means you built everything I built. Claire stared at him. Daniel continued. You want the truth? Fine. I outgrew you. Natalie looked at him. Even she seemed shocked. Claire's lips parted slightly. Daniel stepped closer. I outgrew this marriage. I outgrew that house. I outgrew pretending that we're equals when we haven't been equals for years. Claire's eyes filled. Rebecca whispered. Daniel, stop. He ignored her. I made Bennett Coastal what it is. Claire said quietly. And that's what you really believe? Yes. You believe I was just there. Daniel didn't answer. Claire nodded slowly. Something inside her seemed to settle. Not break. Settle. Thank you. Daniel frowned. For what? For finally saying it where I can hear you clearly. She reached for the wedding ring on her finger. Daniel watched. Claire slowly removed it. For 15 years, there had been a pale strip of skin beneath it. She looked at the ring, then closed her fingers around it. Daniel's expression shifted. Claire. No. For the first time, her voice carried no anger. You don't get to soften your voice now. He stared at her. Claire continued. You wanted to end our marriage tonight. She looked around at their guests. You wanted witnesses. Then she looked back at him. Congratulations. She held up the ring. Now you have them. Daniel swallowed. Claire placed the ring inside her purse. Natalie stepped away from him too. Daniel noticed. Where are you going? Natalie shook her head. I don't know. What does that mean? It means I don't know who you are. Daniel laughed. Oh, please. Don't suddenly pretend you're innocent. I never said I was. You knew I was married. Natalie flinched. Claire watched her. Natalie nodded. Yes. And I have to live with that. Then she looked at Claire. I am sorry. Claire's expression remained cold. Don't apologize because he lied to you. Natalie lowered her eyes. Claire continued. Apologize because you knew he was lying to me. Natalie swallowed. You're right. Daniel shook his head. This is unbelievable. Natalie turned toward him. No. What's unbelievable is that you told me Claire was some spoiled wife who contributed nothing. Claire looked at Daniel. Natalie continued. You said she spent your money. You said she didn't care about the company. You said she'd take whatever settlement you offered because she wouldn't understand the financial documents. Claire's jaw tightened. Daniel's face changed. Natalie wasn't finished. You told me humiliating her tonight would stop her from fighting you. A stunned silence fell across the yacht. Claire felt as though the air had been knocked from her lungs. She turned slowly toward Daniel. What did she just say? Daniel stared at Natalie. You stupid. Claire raised her voice. What did she just say? Daniel didn't answer. Claire stepped toward him. You planned this because you thought humiliating me would make me accept your settlement? That's not what happened. Natalie interrupted. Yes, it is. Daniel pointed at her. You're lying because you're scared. Natalie reached for her phone. No. She unlocked it. I'm scared because I believed you. Daniel's eyes fixed on the phone. Natalie looked at Claire. But I kept our messages. Daniel lunged forward. Give me that. Captain Marcus immediately stepped between them. Sir. Move. Back up. That's my private conversation. Marcus didn't move. Natalie held the phone tightly. Claire stared at it. What messages? Natalie looked at her. The ones where he told me exactly what he planned to do tonight. Daniel's face drained of color. And suddenly Claire understood why he was terrified. The money might destroy his business. The affair might destroy his marriage. But the messages in Natalie's hand could prove that every cruel second of this anniversary had been deliberate. and Daniel Bennett had just tried to grab the evidence in front of nearly 20 witnesses. "Give me the phone, Natalie." Daniel tried to move around Captain Marcus. Marcus blocked him again. "Mr. Bennett, step back. You don't understand what's happening. I understand that you just tried to take something from another passenger by force. I wasn't taking anything." Natalie held the phone against her chest. "You were." Daniel pointed at her. "You're destroying everything." Natalie stared at him. "No, Daniel. I think you already did that." Claire read silently. Her expression changed. "What does it say?" Rebecca asked softly. Claire couldn't answer. Natalie did. He wrote, "Once she sees everyone knows we're finished, she'll be too embarrassed to fight me." A murmur moved through the guests. Daniel scoffed. "That's taken out of context." Claire looked at him. "What context makes that better?" Daniel said nothing. Natalie scrolled again. "There's another one." Claire read it. This time, her eyes filled immediately. Daniel had written, "Claire hates public confrontation. She'll just want to get off the boat. After that, my lawyer can handle her." Claire lowered the phone. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Daniel knew that about her. He knew because she'd trusted him with it. Years earlier, Claire had told him how deeply she hated public humiliation. She had grown up with a father who mocked her mother in front of relatives whenever they argued. Daniel knew Claire would leave a room rather than fight in front of strangers. And he'd weaponized it. Claire looked at him. "You remembered." Daniel frowned. "What?" "You remembered what I told you about my parents." His expression changed. "Claire, you knew exactly what this would do to me." "That's not what I meant." "You knew?" Daniel stepped toward her. "I was angry when I wrote those messages." "No." Claire shook her head. "You planned the guest list. You planned the speech. You brought Natalie. You prepared the divorce papers. You knew exactly what you were doing." Daniel lowered his voice. "I didn't want a long fight. So you thought you'd break me first?" "No." "Then explain it." He couldn't. Claire handed the phone back to Natalie. She looked around. Michael wouldn't meet Daniel's eyes. One of the investors was quietly speaking to another. Peter was typing something into his phone. Rebecca stood beside Claire. Daniel noticed the investors. His panic deepened. "Guys, whatever you're hearing tonight has nothing to do with Bennett Coastal." One investor, Thomas, looked at him. "You moved almost $300,000 into an LLC owned by the woman you're having an affair with. It was a legitimate transaction. What was purchased?" Daniel hesitated. "We were developing a marketing subsidiary." Natalie stared at him. "What?" Daniel ignored her. Thomas repeated, "What did the company purchase?" "I don't have to conduct an audit on a yacht." Peter spoke. "You were asked for supporting documentation months ago." Daniel glared at him. "And I told you it was being prepared. You also told me Claire approved it." Everyone looked at Claire. She shook her head. "I didn't." Thomas's expression hardened. Daniel raised both hands. "Everyone needs to calm down." Claire almost smiled at those words. For years, whenever she questioned him, Daniel had told her to calm down. Now the entire deck was questioning him. And suddenly calmness was important. The yacht continued toward the marina. The lights of the shoreline grew brighter. Daniel walked toward Claire. "Can we talk privately?" "No." "Claire, please." She looked at him. "You wanted an audience." "Stop saying that." "Why?" "It's true. I made a mistake." Claire stared at him. "A mistake?" "Yes." "Which part?" Daniel looked confused. "The affair." She took a step toward him. "The money." Another step. "The condo." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Or inviting people onto a yacht because you thought humiliating me would make me easier to control." "Claire, which one is the mistake?" He had no answer. Claire's voice softened. "That is the problem, Daniel. This wasn't one mistake." Silence. It was hundreds of decisions. Daniel looked away. Every hotel reservation. Every lie about where you were. Every transfer. Every message. Every time you came home and looked me in the face. Her voice began trembling. "You didn't accidentally destroy our marriage." Daniel's eyes lowered. "You worked at it." For the first time all night, he looked ashamed. "I never wanted to hurt Sophie." Claire's face hardened instantly. "Don't. She's my daughter too." "Then you should have thought about her before tonight." "I did." "No. You thought about what you wanted." Daniel exhaled. "What am I supposed to do now?" Claire almost couldn't believe the question. There he was. The man who had expected her to receive divorce papers in front of 20 people and quietly disappear. And now that his own future was uncertain, He wanted instructions. Claire looked toward the water, then back at him. The same thing you expected me to do. Daniel frowned. What? Start over. He stared at her. After 15 years, that's all you have to say? Claire's eyes filled. No. She stepped closer. I could tell you about the nights I stayed awake when you thought the company was going bankrupt. Daniel looked down. I could remind you that I sold my grandmother's jewelry when we couldn't make payroll. Claire, I could remind you that when Sophie was 6 months old, I sat on the bathroom floor crying because I was exhausted, and you promised me one day all of this would be worth it. Daniel closed his eyes. Claire continued. I could remind you of every birthday, every Christmas, every funeral, every hospital waiting room. Her voice broke. I could remind you that I loved you when there was absolutely nothing impressive about being Daniel Bennett. That landed. Daniel opened his eyes. Claire wiped her cheek. But none of it matters if you decided the woman who helped you build your life became an embarrassment once the life was built. That's not what you are. It's how you treated me. Daniel reached toward her. Claire stepped back. No. His hand dropped. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good. But I want a chance to explain. You had 15 years to explain who you were. The yacht approached the marina. Captain Marcus announced. We'll be docking in approximately 5 minutes. Claire looked toward the shore. 5 minutes. 5 minutes until she could walk away. But Peter approached her. Claire. She turned. What? We need to talk tomorrow. About the accounts? He nodded. I don't want to speculate tonight. But this is bigger than I originally thought. Daniel heard him. What does that mean? Peter looked at him. It means the company's records need an independent review. You're not authorized to do that. Claire spoke. Then I'll authorize what I'm legally entitled to authorize after speaking with counsel. Daniel stared at her. You already have a lawyer? Claire didn't answer. His eyes widened. You do. She remained silent. How long have you known? Claire looked at him. About Natalie? Yes. I suspected something 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. Yes. And you said nothing? I was waiting. For what? The truth. Daniel laughed bitterly. You've been pretending for 6 weeks. Claire's expression sharpened. No. I've been protecting myself for 6 weeks. He shook his head. You should have confronted me. Claire stared at him. So you could delete the messages? Daniel fell silent. So you could move more money? Nothing. So you could tell me I was paranoid? Daniel looked away. Claire nodded. Exactly. The yacht finally reached the dock. Crew members secured the lines. Nobody rushed to leave. The guests seemed unsure whether walking away would somehow make what they'd witnessed more real. Claire picked up her purse. Rebecca touched her arm. Come home with me tonight. Claire nodded. Thank you. Daniel stepped forward. Claire. She stopped. He held the divorce envelope. You didn't even read these. She looked at it. No. You need to. My attorney will. His face fell. So that's it. Claire looked at him for a long moment. Then she glanced toward Natalie. Natalie stood alone now. The confidence she'd boarded with was gone. Claire walked toward her. Natalie looked nervous. I know you probably hate me. Claire stopped. Hate would require energy I don't have tonight. Natalie swallowed. I believed a lot of things I wanted to believe. Claire nodded. That doesn't make what you did okay. I know. You came here knowing he planned to humiliate me. Natalie's eyes filled. Yes. That wasn't something Daniel tricked you into. No. Remember that. Natalie nodded. I will. Claire turned away. Claire. She stopped. Natalie continued. If your lawyer needs the messages, I'll give them everything. Daniel snapped. Natalie. She ignored him. Claire looked at her. Don't delete anything. I won't. Claire walked toward the exit. Daniel followed. Claire, wait. She continued. He caught up near the gangway. What do I tell Sophie? That stopped her. Claire slowly turned. For a moment, the anger disappeared. Only sadness remained. You tell her the truth that belongs to her. What does that mean? It means she's our daughter, not our judge. We don't make her carry this. Daniel looked surprised. Even now, Claire was protecting their child from a war she hadn't created. Claire continued. You don't blame me. I won't use her to punish you. And we don't tell her details she doesn't need. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. But don't lie to her. I won't. Claire studied him. You've said that before. Then she stepped onto the dock. 6 months later, the legal fight wasn't magically over. Real life rarely wrapped itself up that neatly. An independent financial review examined Bennett Coastal's accounts. Attorneys disputed transfers, ownership rights, and Daniel's financial decisions. Several transactions were challenged, and Daniel's authority inside the company became the subject of serious scrutiny. Two major business relationships were paused. The Miami condo purchase never became the new beginning Daniel had imagined. Natalie ended their relationship within days of the anniversary and later provided copies of messages and financial communications to the attorneys handling the dispute. Claire didn't become instantly fearless. Some nights she cried. Some mornings she woke up and reached toward Daniel's side of the bed before remembering. 15 years couldn't disappear because one terrible evening exposed the truth. But Claire began rebuilding. One Saturday afternoon, Sophie found her sitting on the back porch with a cup of coffee. "Mom." Claire smiled. "What's up?" Sophie sat beside her. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Were you scared?" Claire knew immediately what she meant. "On the boat." Sophie nodded. Claire thought about it. "Yes." "Really? Terrified?" Sophie frowned. "But Aunt Rebecca said you looked so calm." Claire smiled sadly. Looking calm and feeling calm aren't the same thing. Sophie rested her head against her mother's shoulder. "How did you do it?" Claire looked across the yard. Then she answered, "Because I finally understood something." "What?" "Being afraid doesn't mean you're powerless." Sophie was quiet. Claire wrapped an arm around her. Months earlier, Daniel had planned an anniversary designed around one belief, that if he embarrassed Claire badly enough, she would become small, quiet, compliant, easy to dismiss. Instead, he gave her something he never intended to give her: clarity. Betrayal rarely begins on the day someone gets caught. Sometimes it begins much earlier, in jokes that aren't really jokes, in sacrifices that become invisible, in decisions one partner believes they have the right to make for both, in the slow transformation of partnership into entitlement. Daniel thought Claire's silence meant she wasn't paying attention. He thought her kindness meant she couldn't fight back. And he thought 15 years of love guaranteed 15 years of obedience. He was wrong, because silence and weakness were never the same thing. And sometimes the person saying the least is simply waiting until they know exactly what needs to be said. So here's the question. If you were Claire, what would you have done on that yacht? Would you have confronted Daniel the moment you discovered the affair? Or would you have stayed quiet until you had the evidence to protect yourself? And what about Natalie? Do you think helping Claire afterward deserves any credit? Or did she lose that right when she knowingly participated in the humiliation? Tell us what you think in the comments, because this is one of those stories where people see the same betrayal very differently. And if you stayed with Claire all the way from that shattered champagne glass to the moment she walked off the yacht, like the video and subscribe to World of Stories TV for more emotional stories of betrayal, secrets, consequences, and unexpected reversals. Because sometimes the most dangerous moment for someone who believes they control everything is the moment the person they've underestimated finally stops playing along.